everyone, and welcome to the next episode of We Built This White Lake. My name is Stephanie Ware, Executive Director with the White Lake Area Chamber and Visitors Bureau, and I am very excited because today I have with me Pete McCarthy, who is the Fire Chief for White Lake Fire Authority. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, so we're going to jump right into the questions. Go ahead and start by sharing a little bit with us about what it is that you do and what your organization does.
Absolutely. So I have the absolute honor and privilege of being the Fire Chief of the White Lake Fire Authority. We are tasked with basically all aspects of first response for three communities: the city of Whitehall Township, and Fruitland Township. Those are the three municipalities that make up the White Lake Fire Authority. And that's really everything emergency response. We've joked over the years because somebody calls 911 and they're not sure who to call, they call the fire department. Mm-hmm. So obviously fires of all types. Structure fires, both commercial and residential, vehicle fires, dumpster fires, woods fires. If it's on fire, somebody calls us. Vehicle accidents, of course, and situations involving all types of medical emergencies. A lot of people don't realize the fire departments are all medical first responders. And that's not just White Lake Fire, that's Muskegon County as a whole. There's an expectation for the minimum emergency medical responder licensure for all of us. And everything in between, hazardous materials incidents, people's carbon monoxide detectors are going off. Gasoline spills, cats in trees, that's a very real thing. In my career, there's been 7 cats that we've been able to help in some way, shape, or form. A red iguana, which was pretty amazing. I didn't get a chance to be a part of that one, but the department did. We got a kitten out of a pipe. We freed a cat from a mechanical recliner. We helped a little boy get his head out of an Utz cheese ball container, because let's be honest, they make the most amazing astronaut helmets. So, and then all the non-emergency stuff, the stuff in the community, and trying to be out there on the fun side of fire prevention with the kids. We have a very, very robust fire prevention program. We get into all the schools and daycares. We see about 1,500 kids every single fire prevention season. Stop, drop, cover your face and roll, get out and stay out, calling 911. And we've started working with a little bit older kids as well, getting deeper into the use of a fire extinguisher or having to go out a second story window, what they can do for a younger sibling. And we're constantly trying to build that. We teach first aid and CPR to all of the health students at Whitehall High School, which is absolutely awesome. That's a great example of one of the many community partnerships we have with the school district. Sometimes on the not so much fun side, we have a very robust inspections department as well. Making sure that every place, every commercial area in our jurisdiction that invites people in is doing so safely. So there's a lot of moving parts, but it's an absolute blast. I'm one of those people that I truly do enjoy my job. It has its bad days, just like anything else, because realistically, my face is now attached to the worst day of a lot of people's lives. But the amazing aspect of what we can do sometimes is to still be able to affect positive change in such a negative environment. When you have somebody who loses their house and they're grateful for everything that you did, even though the outcome obviously was something horrible, I think that really speaks to the relationship that you've built with that community and the trust that you have, and them understanding that you really did everything that you could. And a lot of these events were handed. Everything we do is reactionary. Mm-hmm. And we never know how far progressed something is going to be when we get that call. The men and women of the White Lake Fire Authority are absolutely amazing. My staff is 2 steps above fantastic. And to see what they've done and to watch how we've grown, it's just been absolutely amazing. And we're such a trusted organization here. That's a really big deal. And it just means the world to us.
You are, and to hear you say that people, when in doubt, call 911, it is because of that early training you guys start with. I mean, I know some of the clearest memories I have of elementary are going to our local fire department. And I remember so much of that. So if people remember nothing else, it's if I'm in trouble for whatever the reason, I'm going to start with 911 because either they'll help me or they'll find someone who will.
Absolutely. And that's if you can lay a foundation like we have, and if every child can understand this is somebody who can help, right? A firefighter, a police officer, an EMT, a teacher, there's all these people that if you have an issue, it doesn't matter what the issue is, if you can get to one of those trusted adults, then we're going to get you the help that you need. It's absolutely amazing for me. I took over the fire prevention division or the public education division, 2004, 2005. And I got to be firefighter Pete. And that has become one of the best things in my life. And everywhere I go, I get to be firefighter Pete. And even when I'm trying to buy a 6-pack at Wesco and I'm like, it's firefighter Pete. I'm like, hey, just a gum. Have a good day. But it's awesome because then all of a sudden we get dispatched to a residential fire alarm. We get to the house and a parent looks at me and goes, are you firefighter Pete? And I go, yeah. Well, as soon as the smoke detector goes off, little Jimmy started going, we've got to get out. Firefighter Pete said so. And that's happened so many times. And and you're like, it works. And, to quote the amazing Red Harris, the proof is in the pudding. And we've been able to do that for so long that now some of those students that we had, they're now going, hey, my kid had you for fire prevention the other day. They won't stop talking about the fire department. I'm like, that's amazing. Because some of these kids also grow up to become our firefighters. Mm-hmm. And that is just absolutely awesome.
I have been with you and your wife out at Walmart even. And I remember we were doing some shopping for Christmas for the fire department. And we were not even through produce right when you walk in, and you'd been stopped 2 or 3 times. And Amanda just said, we can go on. It'll be a while. We can just start. But it's, it's true. And it's a good thing to be known for.
Absolutely. And like I said, the only thing that I ask of all the kids watching is please make sure that you yell firefighter Pete, or you let somebody know that it's firefighter Pete. Because when I'm in street clothes in the middle of the grocery store and you run up to give me a hug, like you need to announce firefighter Pete so then everybody around and like your family knows that it's the local firefighter and not a random guy in the produce section that you're running up to.
Yes.
No, it's and that whole aspect of, and it starts there, being able to have that captive audience with all those students and being able to spend that time. It just, and like I said, we've got more than one firefighter in our department is Whitehall born and bred that went through that program, and whether or not that played a part in it, we're going to take credit for it. So,
of course, why not? You should. So tell us a little bit about where White Lake Fire started, how it all began, the history of it.
Absolutely. So the story of the White Lake Fire Authority is actually a very short story compared to the protection of this community. So we have some conflicting stories as far as the original when things started, just because we're talking 1885-ish. So record keeping obviously was a little different back then. And in 1885, nobody looked at their rotary phone and got a memory on social media that said, hey, you started this day like we do now. But so the city of Whitehall, so the Whitehall Fire Department in between 1881 and 1885 is where the inception was. We're actually not sitting too far from the original fire station. It was actually one block, just the block behind us, behind Fetch, was where the original firehouse was. Now, flash forward to 1994, obviously much more recent, and the city of Whitehall, Fruitland Township, and Whitehall Township, as I mentioned, their leadership came together and realized that they couldn't provide the level of service that they wanted to based on their limited resources. So the decision was made that if the three of them pooled together, that one department could be more robust, have better funding, better staffing, better equipment, and then serve all 3 municipalities. So that decision was made in 1994 for a 30-year operating period, which actually just came to a close last year. and the community renewed that for another 15. So that started with paid on call firefighters, a group of men and women who had full-time jobs and families and carried pagers. And when something went wrong, the pagers went off if they were available, responded to the station, and went and answered the call. Now we are 9 full-time deep. So we have 2 firefighters on a shift, on every shift, one out of both stations. Station 1 was right here downtown, hooked to the City of Whitehall complex. And we have since relocated and built a brand new 13,000 square foot facility that we moved into 2021. The original Station 2 was Mrs. Johnson's barn on Weber Road, which is actually still standing. And it was just a community member that said, yeah, you can park a fire truck there. Then the Station 2 progressed into the building where it is now, but originally was just a pole barn that was built by the state of Michigan DNR to house a piece of equipment that, as I understand, ate seaweed on Duck Lake. Some sort of an apparatus that was to help take care of that type of thing. That project was abandoned. The fire department took it over. A couple of expansions, made it a little bit bigger, added some cruise quarters stuff. And that's undergoing a renovation over the next calendar year as part of our new operational period, especially because we have staff out there now. So the 6 full-time staff, 2 on every shift, chief and a deputy chief. Deputy chief also acts as the fire marshal. And then we have a full-time administrative assistant who is also cross-trained as an emergency responder as well. So and a lot of that has to do with in 1994 when the fire authority formed. Record keeping isn't great, even in 1994. We were running in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 alarms a year. We finished 2024 with 1,497 alarms. So we've come a long way. Obviously, a lot of that's due to growth. As the community has gotten bigger, more families have come in here. The school district's grown. Our industry has grown. People have come here for jobs. So again, more people end up needing us. So we've done everything we can to grow along with the community and make sure that no matter what comes to this community or whatever need arises in this community, we're able to respond and at least mitigate the situation initially. And if we find that it's something outside of our scope, we luckily have a network of people to come in behind us and help. So
that's amazing. I didn't realize it was as recent as 1994. I guess it just assumed you've always been, but so I've seen awesome photos that I think the Montague Museum might have, but I know the White Lake Area Historical Society for sure does. Really like old photos from when it was behind Fetch. You've got like there's a photo out there of a fun group photo, guys hanging out from the top. And then on the bottom, and like it was like a team photo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was so cool to see, but it didn't occur to me that shifted only in 1994. Yeah,
and at that time, like I said, the city of Whitehall is just over 2 square miles. So the White Lake Fire Authority actually protects 54 square miles. And that's one sad thing that we used to do team photos every year. And Greg Means actually was the guy because he would come for the Beacon every year, fire prevention time, to advertise for our fire prevention open house. So we'd get together, we'd do our big team photos. We have, all those years of team photos. And then obviously when Mr. Means retired, we don't do that anymore. We need to bring that back because team photos are amazing. We need to do better with that. So I should talk to my person that helps me with social media for the fire authority.
You should. She might have a connection through the Chamber of Commerce as well.
Perfect.
And be able to help you figure that out.
Yes.
Making a mental note now.
Perfect. Hey, Steph, can we talk afterward about our Facebook?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
We can do that. Yep. What would you say are some of the biggest hurdles that you guys have had to overcome?
To be completely 100% honest, it's money. In the grand scheme of things, it costs money to operate. And oh my goodness, I apologize. The nature of emergency response. So Oh, and by the way, that wasn't actually an emergency. I didn't just ignore that emergency for this podcast. I want everybody to know that. I said the nature of emergency response and then acted like I ignored it. That's not the case. So it's funding. The problem the one of the most difficult things about running an emergency organization is the system is inflated even more than everything else. Because if you go over to one of our amazing partners here in town, whether it be Armstrong's or Johnson's, and you need a tackle box, and you can buy a tackle box for $14.99, and it's amazing. It'll do everything you want it to do. Take that same tackle box, take a Star Life decal, stick it to the top, call it a med kit. Now it's $49.99. And there, because of that, and because so much stuff that we use is only one person makes it. Only there's not competition. The technology, the intellectual property, the proprietary aspect of a lot of our specialty equipment. There's not 14 companies that are making the jaws of life. And you know, the most recent truck purchase prior to the authority forming in 1994 was a fire engine that was built in 1990, and they paid just about 90. Excuse me. And they paid just about $98,000 for that fire truck in 1990. I just recently got a quote back for a fire engine that would be a 2026, and it was $17,000 over $1 million. So we're talking a 33-year swing, and the cost of doing business is crazy, and we are a necessity, and the community knows that, the community supports that, but there's always the difficult side of, is this a need versus a want, and understanding what it is that we need to be able to do our job successfully, because there's equipment that is necessary to mitigate the hazard, right? And there's also all of the equipment that's necessary to protect the people that are mitigating the hazard. And you know, a good example, we replaced all of our self-contained breathing apparatus, so our air packs, 2 years ago. And that was $232,000 for the air packs. That doesn't pay for the person that's wearing them. It doesn't pay for the compressor to fill them. It doesn't pay for the fire trucks for it to ride on. But that stuff is just so crazy expensive. And because we are an authority, we're 100% tax-based. So every dollar we spend comes directly out of our community's pocket. And we really work hard to be good stewards of that money and to be fiscally responsible with that money. But sometimes it can be difficult to justify to someone who doesn't know, right? You know, we're sitting here in CatchMark, and CatchMark says, well, it's going to be this much to fix this in the computer. And I go, well, that sounds crazy to me. Well, I don't understand what goes into having to accomplish that. Whether it's the parts and the labor and all of the expertise it takes to fix that computer and make it so my controller works again, so I can keep playing Call of Duty with my son, right? And we run into that a little bit. And we also run into the old school politics of, I'm not giving you any more tax money, which I get. Nobody likes paying taxes. But when you run an organization that solely relies on that, now we talk about going back to all the time we've spent in the community, building that reputation and gaining that trust, because the trust is such an important aspect for them to send you their tax money and to rely on you. But the trust is even more important because 3 o'clock in the morning when you're having a bad day, we're walking into your home. Maybe you've never met us before, but you've called 911, and you need to trust that those people that are showing up are going to be, you know, pleasant first and foremost, because it's 3 a.m. Nobody wants a crotchety person in their house. But you want them to be well trained. You want them to be well equipped. You want them to have reliable apparatus to get to the scene in a timely manner. So there's a lot of moving parts with that. And by and large, this community supports us, and it's just amazing. But that's the most challenging part of, especially for me, because it makes sense in my head. Well, this is perfectly justified as to why we want to do this. Well, that's also what I do every day. So it's taking that information and trying to make sure that everybody from all walks of life understand that. The same way the doctor explains to me a test that I don't understand, or, Brent from CatchMark explains to me why they need to replace the hard drive or whatever the case may be. So a lot of times that's what it comes back to. The other big challenge I think for us is making sure that we are always ready for that next call. We see a lot of things that people shouldn't have to see. And we do that voluntarily. Nobody forced us into this, and we're all very proud to be able to do this job. But making sure that we are the next person that calls 911 needs us to be. It can be very easy to be the best that we can, have a bad day, have a negative impact on us, whether it be emotionally or physically or mentally. And then we get another call 20 minutes later. That person's heart attack isn't going to wait until I'm having a better day. So that's one of the things that we've really strived for. And the community relationship and the trust, that's all about maintaining. We've already done all of that. That's about continuing to show them that we're going to always be the best that we can be. That's easier. Changing an entire mentality of how we deal with those things moving forward and how we stay mentally healthy and how we maintain our own physical and mental preparedness to run those alarms, that's new. Because when I joined the fire department 22 years ago, it was suck it up, buttercup, you're going to be fine. And we moved on and we didn't deal with that stuff. So that's a big transition in the world of being a firefighter these last few years.
So I'm around the department a lot.
Yes.
My husband is one of the firefighters on White Lake Fire, and so I've been around it a lot. And to just hear you all say, I've heard kind of everyone say variations of, in a bigger city, you might not see these people again, but when you're here, it is more personal. It is more of a challenge. And again, one that you guys know you're getting into, but it's not just a medical emergency you run, but it's probably someone you know or someone you know knows them or is related to that family member. And it adds just another layer of caution and definitely a challenge, I guess. Another
Absolutely.
level of a challenge.
Absolutely. And that is a classic case of this is the best and worst, because doing this in a small town has so many advantages. Because if you're experiencing a medical emergency, to have a familiar face show up, that's amazing. And I've heard that thousands of times in my career. Oh my God, it was so nice to see you. It was so nice to see a familiar face when I show. Oh my gosh, okay, I saw Pete. Pete's here. It's going to be okay. Now, that's not bragging. That's not talking about how good I am. That's just talking about the people assuming that I am. They've never seen my skills before, but because they knew me, that instantly made them feel at least a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable in that situation. And that's awesome. And guess what? Sometimes in the world of emergency medicine, that's all we can offer. I've always called that CPR for the living, calm, positive reassurance, because there's things we can't fix out there. And so to be able to have that relationship and be able to affect even that little bit of positive change in those situations. But what that means is we don't run on strangers anymore. We start, addresses become familiar. We start to know, and the older we get, people typically, we end up getting married, and now we've got two families from the area that we all know. Then we start having kids, and now we're at the school events, and we start, hey, this is my son's best friend. Well, that was his mom or his grandma. And it's amazing, again, because the small town aspect of it is awesome, but that can be very challenging. When, like I said, when you start to see everybody and you know everybody, it's more difficult to distance yourself from that situation post call. So
with those challenges, we always hope there's way more victories, and I know in White Lake Fire's case there is. So
absolutely.
Share maybe some of those biggest victories.
There are so many things across kind of so many different facets of what we do. I preach to my staff, especially my new staff coming in, about celebrating victories. And how we view a victory of maybe we didn't get the outcome that we would have wanted, but look at the perspective of the things that we did do, and we did do well. So when we have a situation that maybe doesn't go our way, we have a situation that, despite our best efforts, doesn't end with the storybook ending that everybody would have hoped. Being able to look at the positive and say, okay, this is what we did, and this is what there's always improvement in everything that we do, right? And being able to kind of, what we do is basically called tailboard talk. We have that conversation at the station. What went good? What went bad? What could have gone better? And then we do show up and we do CPR and we do win, right? We do get that that win. I literally had a cookie at the fire station yesterday. A local community member, cardiac arrest victim, and we were able to resuscitate her. And about every 3 months, more cookies. And I've known the family forever. I went to school with her son, and she is one of these people that every day wakes up and goes, because of these people, I woke up today. That's heavy. And while we don't always obviously see it that way, to know that we did that, and I teach everybody to just hold on to those victories. And if you hold on to those will carry you through the next 2, 3, 4, 8, 15 bad calls, or more difficult calls, or ones where we don't get the anticipated outcome. And because if you keep showing up, if you stay trained and you stay dedicated and you stay committed, when that pager goes off, if you keep showing up, you're going to be able to affect positive change again. As long as you still keep capturing that opportunity to do something for this community, we're going to get there. You just got to hold on, because there are just too many things that are beyond our control. In a world where 1,000 things can go wrong with the heart, we have 4 things that we can do to try and fix it. So the being able to look at it from that aspect, in sometimes we don't get the discharge, right? We don't get the victim that comes home from the hospital. But sometimes we're able to do something to keep that person with us long enough to get their son home from California, to be able to spend another hour with dad. Mm-hmm. And while maybe that person doesn't walk out of the hospital, to be able to contribute to that opportunity for closure for that family, sometimes has to be good enough. And we get really good at the small victories. So the staff, again, 2 steps above fantastic. I could not be prouder of the people that I work with. And I've gotten on so many occasions to be part of a team that was able to just do something great. And to pick, obviously individual ones is become increasingly difficult, because when you start running the numbers, I've responded to thousands of alarms now, and that's a staggering number. And one of the most recently, June 25th of this last year, excuse me, we had that storm, and the small town impact of that. I'm driving around with members of the state government, right, and they're looking at this house and going, well, this is devastating, right? I'm looking at this house going, this is devastating. But what you don't know is I was there 3 months ago and they suffered this loss. I was here last year when this went wrong, and that was crazy for me too. And I told these politicians that you guys see it for this moment of, hey, their house is smashed up. And I'm going, these people have wounds that aren't even healed. And then to have this on top of it. But that's the small town aspect. That's knowing there is not a road, a block, or a section of road or a street that I can drive in my hometown and not go, that happened there, that happened there, that happened there. But it also, that shapes who we are and what we do. Mm-hmm. And that only makes us that only makes us better in the long run. If we can weather those storms, both literally and figuratively, it makes us the best responder for when Mrs. Jones calls next week on Wednesday and says, "Hey, I've got this problem." We can be there. In the one of the coolest.
I hear sirens.
I hear sirens too. Not us. Cool. So, must be our neighboring jurisdiction. Montague heading to an alarm. So, I turned my pager off to be respectful, but I also don't want to disconnect too much.
Yeah, no.
You know. So, where was I, Stephanie?
Well, you were talking about the victories in the storms
Yep.
and just driving down and every house having a story, every section having a story. But we can go.
Perfect.
Okay. So that we're discussing victories, and there have been a lot, and the ones that you call small victories are huge victories to those who are impacted. So for a family who has a loved one that's maybe has a health condition, getting that extra hour so someone can come and say goodbye is a huge victory to them. So,
And that's a huge thing too, because people will, "Oh my goodness, you were," and we go, "Okay." We might not even remember because there's so many, and that's not in any way meant to slight that family. But I'll have firefighters go, "I can't believe they remembered us." I go, "Guys, we've run 1,000 calls since then. They've had one emergency in their entire life. That was the worst day that they've ever had, and they saw us, and we were there to do that. It's much easier for them to remember us than it is for us to remember them sometimes." And a lot of people, there are people that go their whole lives and never have to call 911 for a real emergency. And that's a great point.
So how would you say, I mean, and this is such a big question, how would you say that White Lake Fire Authority has impacted the community?
I think the biggest aspect is the trust. Of the various services that we can provide, all of those services are very, very difficult if we don't have a solid foundation of trust. Mm-hmm. And if the community doesn't trust in the organization, if the community doesn't believe that the organization is doing everything they can with the community's best interest in mind, we evaluate decisions at the fire department all the time. What's best for the community, what's best for the department, what's best for me. And if we can answer those three questions, we know we normally have a winning formula. Now, of course, every decision can't be made that way, because there are decisions that are, hey, this is what's best for the community of you getting up at 4:30 in the morning and rushing out into the freezing cold. It might not in that moment feel like that's what's best for you, right? But no, the transparency, the open dialogue, the communication, the trust, them understanding that we are here for you. There isn't anything that we can't handle, at least initially. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a small stove fire or we had a Keurig fire not too long ago, right? From the little Keurig fires to the 30 patient hazardous materials incidents at Michigan's Adventure to the 4-story 100-year-old Michelin to Beach Lodge. It's at night. It's it's been remodeled 1,000 times, so there's all these different hidden void spaces and different areas and channels for all this fire to move and heat to change and to not fully understand how that building's constructed. And then we're going to set it 25 feet away from a 100-foot cliff, and then we're going to throw 30-mile-an-hour winds at it, and it's in an area where there aren't fire hydrants. And every one of the challenges that the White Lake Fire Authority has ever been presented with, they've been successful. And again, varying degrees of success, obviously, but every single time that 911 is called and we're asked to respond, there is an aspect of positive change that we can affect. And even if that means a tanker tips over on the highway and it's spilling a toxic gas out, spilling a toxic liquid out, we can't do anything for that toxic liquid, but we can protect that area. We can get people off of the highway. We can get people evacuated. We get the hazmat team coming in. We get law enforcement involved. We might not be we might not ultimately be the one that's mitigating the hazard, but we are moving the chess pieces around on the board to get the right people in the right place to handle the situation. And the best example of that is down power lines. We don't touch them. And hey, a message to the community members, regardless of how loudly you yell at my firefighters and tell them that the equipment that you paid for should protect them from that power line, they're not going to move it. We have a standard operating procedure that we don't touch electricity. And we have a running joke. We have Consumers is a great community partner of ours. And we have a running joke with the Consumers Energy employees of, hey, you work with these electrical lines. You realize we go into burning buildings and we think you're crazy, right? But we block the road off. We turn our lights on. We render that area safe. So nobody on their way to work, no kid walking out to the bus for school is going to be negatively impacted by that until the appropriate person can remedy that situation. And sometimes that means we block off the road and then we go door to door for 6 houses and knock and go, hey, sorry to bother you. Just want to let you know there's a down power line across your driveway. You're going to be trapped here for a little bit, but it's all about safety. And oh, hey, thank you for letting me know. We have all left the house in the morning and been in a hurry, and next thing you know, you drive over a power line, and that could be a potential issue. So we're all about we are always the best person to start the situation. We not may be the best person to finish it, because again, it might be out of our area of expertise. But the White Lake Fire Authority, when called, will be the best person to have on that scene to start down the right path of fixing whatever went wrong. So.
Lots of ways you guys have impacted the community. Honestly, that would be almost the whole message of the podcast.
One, and it's again too, and it's easy to sound. It's kind of easy to sound braggy when we say, "Well, everything we do impacts the community." Well, but that's also what we signed up for. I mean, that's why we exist. There's an aspect of you don't applaud the stapler every time it staples something. Well, that's what it's built for. And that's what we're built for. Now, don't get me wrong. We have an intense amount of pride in what we do. But on the outside looking in, there's a lot of things that are a lot more impactful to those that are looking into the fire department than those that are kind of on the inside, because there is a certain aspect of that's just part of the job. People go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you cut that door off that car. And we're like, we did that 14 times last year. And it's exciting, and that's probably one of the weirder things is we train all the time. We work all the time to try to make sure that we are the most competent and confident in the skills that we have and the equipment that we use, and constantly monitoring for new methods and new technology, a better mousetrap, if you will. We always have our finger on the pulse of we do a great job now. Can we do a greater job? And all of those things that we do, like I said, they almost kind of become commonplace sometimes, and we go, that's just part of the job. And, but man, the tough part is when we look and we go, that was an awesome fire, but it wasn't, and it's such a weird thing, because a situation occurs and we didn't start the fire, right? We get called, we do the best that we can to mitigate it. But the big incidents and stuff, the stuff we work the hardest to train for, there's an excitement there because we're going to use these skills, we're going to help people. But then there's this devastating other side of we got an opportunity to do this job that we worked so hard to do, and somebody just lost everything. And it really mentally can be really kind of a weird situation. But it's, because you look at when a free safety, gets an interception in football, we go, hey, that's awesome. And they celebrate it and they do a dance and they spike the ball and they did their job. Well, we don't do that in our job, because even though it was a win, even though we did a great job, and most importantly, we did a great job, we did it safely, there's no celebration in that. Right. Because there's a family that's standing there and they may only have the clothes on their back. And so kind of managing how we do those those things. Don't get me wrong. Back at the firehouse, yeah, we're high-fiving and we're fist bumping because you know what? We did it. A situation occurred. We went out there. We used our training. We used our knowledge. We used our expertise to do good in the world. And that is a win. But we got to be a little bit more private with some of our wins because we want to be respectful to the people out in the world.
Absolutely. I learned a long time ago that hearing things like that was a crazy call or that was a crazy fire, they don't mean what I think it means.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
I've had to look at that and go, no, I understand that first and foremost there was a loss and a devastation.
Right.
But to be able to do what you're trained to do is
Right.
different. So what would you say is one thing, maybe your parting message? What's one thing you wish that people knew about the organization as a whole?
We're very fortunate that that we are as public and as out there. The biggest thing that I can say to the community, I hear from people that are dealing with an emergency. I hear way too often about delayed calls because we didn't want to bother you. Oh, you having chest pain? Yeah. How long has it been going on? Well, the last couple of days. Why didn't you call us a couple of days ago? I didn't want to bother. It was the middle of the night. I didn't want to bother you. Bother us. Every single one of us signed up to be bothered. That's exactly what we do. There is nothing that we're doing around the firehouse. There's nothing that even being on other calls, we're going to get to you. We're going to help. There's no such thing as an emergency that is too small. And if we show up in one of the most common false alarms that we get are kids, right? Especially newer parents or inexperienced parents. They have something happen, a fever, it spooks them. They call 911. We get there and baby's fine. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Do not apologize to me that your baby is fine. We will run 14 false alarms a day because a parent was worried or somebody cared about somebody in their family to call 911. And we get there and go, oh, okay, well, it's not as bad as we thought. That's good. That's a huge win. We want everything to be not as bad as what somebody thought. But on more than one occasion, there have been people that because they didn't want to bother or they didn't want to get a bill that they didn't call us and had negative consequences. We don't bill you. We're tax-based. We're going to show up. Doesn't matter what it is. You don't get a bill. We show up for free, whether it's one truck or 10 trucks, whether it's one firefighter or 10 firefighters, whether there's fire, no fire, medical, it doesn't matter. That's what we do. And that's what this community has asked us to do. That's what this community dedicates that millage money and those tax resources to, is for us to be there. So call us and don't ever apologize for calling us. It's what we want to do. And I've spent the last 2 days in my office with the auditor doing all the financials. So yeah, call me. Get me out of the office. I'm totally fine with that. So.
Well, thank you guys, because truthfully, White Lake Fire Authority has such a huge presence in our community, not only in the calls that you do, but the other things you volunteer for. You guys are at events, you're helping, you're in the parades, you're really anywhere you can be to be a community presence. And as you do that, and the more you do that, the more people know you're not scary. It is okay to call you guys. It is okay to ask questions. And so thank you for all the work that you guys do.
Of course.
And thank you for listening, whether you know him as Chief McCarthy or Firefighter Pete. It was great to hear from you. So thank you.
You got it. Thanks for having me.